Hi there everybody, Bradley Sward, the PacProf here, and today we're going to take a look at something that I believe is called a 15 puzzle, because you look at that and you go, oh my goodness, there's 15 pieces that I need to move around. You know, it's an actual physical thing. We're going to create a video game representation of this thing, and whether or not you've ever held one in your hands and played with it, you should be able to take a look at that and go, oh, it's pretty simple, a pretty simple understanding that there's a hole somewhere in here and I can move the pieces around. And this is a junky version. I paid like $3 for this thing on Amazon. And I can move stuff, move the numbers around, move the pieces around. My goal is whatever I want it to be. That's, it's as much fun as that is. Maybe, this thing's all screwed up, but maybe I want to get it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, or something, or in reverse, or whatever my challenge would be. But you see how simple it is to play the game and move stuff around. So what we're going to do today is take a look at how to accomplish that. It's really not overly difficult comparatively to a lot of the more modern games. So let's take a look. Okay, so here on the left is our actual physical 15 puzzle, and here on my piece of paper is going to be our modeling of that as we're going to put into our actual game. Your scaling might be different than mine, but in my own head I have an idea of how I want to accomplish this project. So maybe it's a little hard, the lighting is poor, and it's late at night and I don't have time to fix it up. So what I want to do is just draw, here is what my screen's going to look like. Okay, oops, let's try to make it a little more straight. Okay, there we go. So I go, what kind of screen resolution do I want to do? And like I said, in my own head, I know what my dimensions are going to be for each individual tile. So what I'm going to do is just run this game in 720 by 720 resolution. Whatever you would choose for your game. Might, either if you're running for Windows, you can kind of set it up however you want, but if you're running it on a phone or some kind of tablet, you don't necessarily have a choice over what resolutions you're going to run at. But 720 by 720, that's all good. And then basically I'm going to set some space in the middle, center it all. Like I said, this isn't a perfect diagram by any means. And I do know that my 16 pieces, or my 15 pieces, are going to get set inside of here. My 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and the blank, so nothing is going to go into that space. Like I said, if I know that each one is going to be 150 by 150, because that's how I already have it set up in my head. So what do I do? 150, 150, 150, 150. That's 150 times 4, 600. Whoops, move this up a little bit. 600 pixels in each dimension for the box for each individual piece, which leaves me 60 pixels of space in each direction. 60 spaces, basically the border, because what we're going to need is a border sprite. It's going to be 720 by 720, but we're going to cut out a giant hole, a 600 by 600 hole from it, which we'll do in a minute. And then what we'll need is each individual piece, but each piece will be 150 by 150, and we'll show how that works in a minute. So that's how we're going to set up sprites. So let's go ahead and take a look at GameMaker. Okay, so let's create the sprites for our 15 puzzle game from the demonstration we just did on our sheet of paper. So we'll need to take a look at creating our border. So I'll create that over here. And then what will I call this? I'll call it border, SPR. I will go ahead and edit this, file, new. So I can create my own image. They say we're going to run in 720 by 720 resolution. Oops, it prints it over here. There we go. 720 by 720 resolution. So there you go with that. Open it up. There we go. Cool. But what I want to do, I could just fill it with one giant image, but that will break for, later on when I go to add the tiles in, and we'll show that when that comes up. But I'll go in here, and now what I want to do is create the border. As it's a black border, so I'll just go ahead for the moment. I'll fill in the whole thing, and then I'm going to eliminate the stuff, the part that isn't the border, the stuff that the tiles are going to be placed on top of it. So over here in color mode, I'll do replace and a 0 because I want to make it completely see-through. And then it doesn't matter what color I use, even black will work for this. And I want to use the square tool with just the plain fill-in. And now I just where do I go from this? So I want to go, because like I said, 60/60 is what I want for the how much of a border do I want? 60 pixels each direction. So if I start at 60/60, I'm terrible at this, my mouse isn't the best, 60/60, and then I go until, what is it, 720 minus 60 gets me 660, but minus 1, whatever, so it's like 660, something like 659, 659, 659. Make sure I do it. There we go. That should do it right, and if not, we'll fix it up. I mean, mistakes happen all the time. But as you notice now, here is my border, and then inside of here is clear, and that's where we're going to put our tiles, and that's going to be perfect. So now, also looking ahead, I'll click out of here a few times. Knowing the way we're going to set everything up, this is like one of the few times I'll ever say, use this precise collision checking for what we're trying to accomplish. And don't worry about anything else. So that's perfect for at least our border. And then let's get started, or let's create each individual sprite for our 15 pieces. Okay, so this is going to be a little more difficult here for the pieces underscore SPR sprite for all the individual pieces. It's going to be a little more tedious because I'm trying to conceptually keep it simpler, so that it's easier to understand, but more clicking. So I already created this sprite, new, just like I create anything else. So I edit this, and I do File, Create from Strip. Like I said, I already created the sprite, so let's go in and find it. I go, where is it? There is Sprite 1. I open that, and I go, oh, geez, look at that. You can create your own, or however you want to get about. You need 16 pieces to make this work. And I go, I have 16 number of images, 4 images per row, and then you have to physically put this in. It doesn't know and I don't know why it doesn't know, but it's 150 by 150 for each tile, and then you notice that the little grid here matches up precisely with what I've created, and I hit OK, and now you notice over here, it looks crazy over here, but it's actually showing everything like it's supposed to. And over here, in the image editor, you see that everything's looking pretty good. So we got that going for us. I hit OK for that. And now, just to keep things relatively simple, we'll leave it at that for the moment. And then we'll use this. We'll figure out a way to use this to create all the individual pieces. Okay, now that we have all our sprites for the entire 15 puzzle game all set up, now we can go ahead and set up all the objects. This is going to be a little more tedious because we're going to have like 18 different objects to create here. So objects, create object. The border is easy. Just create a border object. Oops, let's put it over here. Create a border object. Sorry about that. GameMaker is creating this stuff off on my other screen. So I'll just use the border sprite. And I think that's pretty much it for the border. So, and for this assignment, or this puzzle game, we're going to create an inheritance structure and use polymorphism, all these big words in computer science. If you don't understand it just yet, don't worry. We cover this plenty in future lectures. So let's just get everything going here. I'm going to right-click on Create Object, and I'm going to create what I'm going to call Piece Base Class. And just like if you can say a banana is a fruit, or Brad is a person, Jim is a person, the same thing will apply here, where this is kind of like the overarching parent class of all of our individual pieces. What I mean by that is that this is my piece base class. What I can do is create all of my pieces. There's piece 1. I can use my pieces sprite, and then I can say my parent is this piece base class. And it obeys what we call an is-a relationship, just like I was just saying, Brad is a person, or something like that. Piece 1 is a piece. And I use the base class nomenclature just so I know that it's a parent class, because a lot of times you're writing a lot of code and you're creating a ton of objects, and just making sure that everything is exactly how you want it is difficult if you don't hold to your own conventions. So I'm going to OK that. So just for the sake of argument, we got everything we need to at least get our room going. So now I can create my new room, my first room in this game. Setting this stuff up, room 0, that's fine. We discussed 720 by 720 for the size of the game we're going to run. So there's our actual game window. And now from object standpoint, I can click on border, add the border in. Now that's how I know I did it right, if it fits the entire game window. And then now, just for the sake of getting this going, here's piece 1. Oops, sorry, I have to click outside of it. It's a stupid GameMaker thing. So there we go, but 32 by 32 is not what I want for my snap settings. Just to get this going, I want 60-60, so it'll go right on the edge, because that's what, I want everything to be snug. Okay, so that sets it up. But running the game now, interesting enough, oh my goodness. Oh goodness, here it is over here. You go, oh my goodness. GameMaker's fun like that, right? We'll fix this up in a second, but just so you see, that's what will run if I run the game as I have it now. Okay, so let's go back and fix this craziness up. So back in my piece, I can put inside of a create event, what do I want? I want to set 2 things here. What variable? It keeps putting everything off on my second monitor, but that's okay. So there's a variable called image speed that basically says how fast do I want this animation to progress, and I would say 0, because I don't want it to ever change once it's created. So saying if I leave that just like that, and I leave it speed as 0, now you see that it doesn't change as much or at all, because it's 0 for a speed is the same as saying there's no change. So there we have that going for us now. And just for the sake of argument and just get this going, there's another variable called image index, which basically says I can set my sprite to whatever specific animation frame I want, as long as I know what value it is. And by default it's 0, but why am I including this? I'm including this because we're going to be very tediously creating 15 pieces and modifying these numbers, or at least this variable, the image index, to make this all work. And you'll see as I go here, like I said, it's going to be a couple minutes of tediousness, but you'll see it working for us. So image speed 0, image index 0. That's all I need to do for piece 1. And now, like I said, tediousness, I'm going to do this 15 times over. Duplicate, call it whatever, piece 2, and just increment this image index by 1 each time I create a new piece. So there's piece 2, duplicate, here's piece 3, change this to 2, and it's just one of those things. Humans start counting from the number 1 up. but the computers start counting from number 0. So that's why it's piece 3, but it's image index 2, and so forth and so on. It's because we're counting from 1 on up, but the computer's starting from 0. So here we go, getting going here. Duplicate again, just like I said, just tediousness. Change the name, or each name has to be unique. There's piece 4. Here's piece 5, and the image index needs to be 1 less than the piece number. And just there's already a third of the way through. This isn't so bad. Piece 6, oops. Image index 5. Duplicate. Piece 7. I keep doing the wrong one. Image index 6. Okay, duplicate. Piece 8. Image index 7. Getting bored yet? I say, a lot of gaming is this amount of tediousness, in all honesty. Nothing wrong with that at all. It just takes a lot of work to get a lot of this stuff done. Stuff you think, oh, there should be an easier way. A lot of times there isn't. So pushing forward piece 11. Now we're moving up image index 10. Only a few more. Piece 12 gets image index 11. Duplicate. Where am I at? The hard part is remembering where you're at. Alright, getting only a couple more away. 3 more. Or 2 more, whatever. 14 gets 13. And duplicate piece 15 gets image index 14. And we don't need the last one because otherwise we wouldn't be able to move the puzzle if we put a piece in every spot. Okay, so like I said, here we go. We have 15 pieces. They're all parented to the piece-based class, and that's important. So by duplicating them every time, I didn't have to go and change anything. I just, because it's already part of that object that's getting duplicated, the parenting structure, so I didn't have to worry about it. So now I have all of this set up. So I said one of the things that's not so great about GameMaker is now if I go to pop these pieces in, oops, I gotta remember to keep clicking outside. Like, oh shoot, how do I set this up? This gets tricky because, like I said, the snap settings makes things a little difficult. So like that's not working for me. Let me just set the snaps to 20. And I think I should, oops, I think I should be able to get it at this point. Nope, 20's now. Is it 20? Nope. I guess I'll have to do 10. 10 by 10 for snap settings. And if you're already noticing, it's just one of those things GameMaker does. Since it's showing the first image, I'm just going to see a lot of 1s up there. But when I run the game, it'll fix up to what it needs to look like. It's just like what you see is what you get. Setup here for the room does not actually give you a what you see is what you get picture when you start your game up. But one thing to note is down here, or where my mouse is when I'm circling, when I mouse over an object, it will tell me which object I am moused over. So here's piece 1, here's piece 2. I click and add piece 3 to the mold here. There's piece 3, piece 4, and just so forth and so on. Piece 5, piece 6, piece 7, piece 8, piece 9, oops, getting closer, 10. As you're noticing, it will work out when you go to run this. Piece 12, piece 13, piece 14, and piece 15. Alright, like I said, we need this hole because otherwise we wouldn't know, or nothing would be able to move. We wouldn't, because the whole point is to be able to click and move one of these pieces into the open spot. So here's my 1s. Now I run this. Will it work? Oh, look, it looks pretty good. Here we go. Here's my puzzle. Here's my game in actuality. And like I said, by setting those image indices, we get what we're supposed to get when we actually run it versus what the room shows me here. You know, like I said, it's a little tricky. Maybe you don't understand it the first time, but try it through a few times if you don't. And now we're ready to push forward into the final step, how to handle a click event on an object, one of these pieces anyway, to be able to say, oh, I need to move the 15 over to the open hole, or I need to move 12 down into the open hole, or up, down, left, right, whatever direction that needs to be. All right, so the code to finish this all up won't be too bad. You see this over here, all these different pieces. You're like, oh, I'm going to write a ton of code. And I go, nope. Like I said, we have used all these big terms, all these big topics in computer science, like we discussed inheritance, polymorphism. We're going to use that so that we only have to write our code in one place, and everything else will kind of fall in line. Don't worry if you don't understand exactly how we went about doing this, but just understand that you will learn that at a future time. So I already wrote the code. We can just discuss it here. Go into our p-space class, and you see it's a left pressed event because when I click on one of those pieces, I want to see if I can move it up, down, left, or right. You go, okay, cool, that's fine. But how do we go about that? It's basically a series of if, else if, else if, else if to see what happens, because there's only going to be one hole at most, you know, or one hole, and in some cases I might click on an object once again and there's nowhere to move, so it won't do anything. But in a case of something like this, it'll try up, down, left, and right, and eventually it'll find a hole to move it into. Same with anything. If there's a hole, there's only going to be one hole, one way it can move, because there'll either be another piece or there'll be the border to stop it, but only one way to move. So I go, what am I doing? I'm just checking. Like I said, each of these if statements is just one of the four cardinal directions. So here is my left, negative 150. That's negative, negative means left in the x coordinate. Relative to my position, meaning take where I'm standing and try to move me 150 pixels over and see if you can. And return, basically, is that position collision free? Is there nothing sitting in that spot if I move over? And you go, if the answer is true, there's nothing there, I will jump to position relative to where I am. I'll just move that 150 pixels over to my left. I said the only tricky part is doing this the 4 times over. You need these else's, otherwise things have the potential to kind of get a little wonky. So else, try to the right, 150 pixels positive in the x direction, relative, everything's going to be relative. And if there isn't anything in the way, move me over, jump over 150 pixels relative to where I am and to the right. Else, if it doesn't, let's try up. The only difference here is the up and down they use the y coordinate. So up is a negative 150 value, relative. You got to make sure you have all for all objects. And if it is, jump negative 150 pixels up, relative. And the final step, trying down, test 150 pixels relative positive y. And if so, let's jump 150 pixels relative to where my position is. And that ultimately, honestly, is all of the code we need for the entire game. I run my program. Here you go. Here's my puzzle. Here's my 15 pieces. I click on this, and there'll be a hole here. It moves because it can go to the right. If I click again, it goes back to the left. So at least in this case, left and right's been tested. So I go, there's down, there's up. So, talk about, this kind of stuff. Testing is a huge part of what we do in any kind of programming. But I've almost guaranteed myself that I've tested every situation already. It's just a matter of clicking things and just going, does it do what I expect it to? So far, so good. Everything's moving around. That goes left and right. That goes down. That goes over. I'm not seeing any issue. There's not a lot of code complexity. So there doesn't need to be too much testing. And once again, if I click on 10, nothing happens because I can't go up, down, left, and right with my piece. But I click 8 and it moves over, this doesn't move down, you name it. And then ultimately it would be up to us to click on the things in the right order to get the numbers into whatever conformation I care to put it into to solve the puzzle the way I want it to. So pretty much that's it. Great job on your first assignment, at least getting this going. Please check Blackboard to see what you will need to complete for the rest of this assignment. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.